We believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier. Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human.
They describe these crafts, these crash crafts, as donations.
Case, I don't like to characterize necessarily where they came from. They're definitely some kind of non-human sentience, but it is true, believe it or not, we've recovered the vehicles. And we actually have physical proof, and I was actually partially cleared into some of those activities. It was beyond oral testimony provided to me. I actually had partial access to the data and actually read the intelligence reports resulting from those programs.
Like with your own eyes,
correct.
You saw it.
Yes.
It is commonly talked about that what we are getting, even when we weaponize it, is a donation, a gift.
And you got to imagine if you were an intelligent life form from another planet. You know, Diana Pasulka talked about, her and Gary Nolan talked about how they refer to some of these things as donations.
Interview subjects clearly imply that some of the they state that some of the UAP we're seeing might be our reverse engineer technology. One of the things shared that I found fascinating was this idea that some of the craft that we've recovered and adversarial nations have recovered weren't crash crafts and weren't crafts that they caused to crash. They were crafts that just appeared outside a military base, almost like a gift. So gifts, donations, but
yeah.
the thought, if you try to explain that, why would anyone do that? Maybe some more advanced species is trying to help advance us and try to like put a carrot on a stick.
And so the theory is that all of these advanced beings, from wherever they're from, the various different species of them, that all of them have this particular type of technology.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's this case that you guys keep talking about with the king in Arizona? They're like, oh, it was like they just landed and left. I was like, well, how do you know they landed? What do you mean landed and left? And they're like, well, the doors were open and nobody home, and they walked off. I said, you mean somebody just flew this thing down, it landed on the ground in the desert in Kingman, Arizona in 1953, and they left the doors open and left, and they were like, yep, that's pretty much what happened. Flew it down and left a craft on the ground. I was told that, and I wouldn't be repeating this if I didn't think there was some serious credibility to it. Not a scratch. I go, not a scratch? What? Not a scratch? Not a scratch on the... No, it was perfect. Didn't have a scratch.
Maybe it's, survival of the fittest for the nations of Earth. Maybe it's a big IQ test. Who knows what it is? But that's an interesting scenario and seems intentional from whoever.
I said I'm going to be talking about the crashes in the 40s. There was a pause, and he says, why just the 40s? The government is very aware that this intelligence is pitting different countries against each other based on religion. On purpose. Parts of the government that know about the UFO phenomenon, the ones that call the others, the ones that are influencing countries, the ones that are by design or maybe by accident happening to crash a very advanced piece of technology in the country's borders so they make better weapons to fight bigger wars. And we're not the only ones that have had a crash, potentially just to see who is stronger. And that's a scary thing. It's a multi-level chess game. And they have to sit back and go, what is the reason they just happen to have had a crash here? What is the reason there's a huge religious war going on right now? What is the reason that all of a sudden, China's defense budget has quadrupled in the past few years?
And he calls them donations, that possibly they're doing this on purpose to help advance our society or something. Give us little breadcrumbs, if you will.
The UFO cargo cult, right? And obviously, Tyler and James view these parts as donate. They called it the donation site.
You say something at the beginning of Chapter 9 about a craft of unknown origin that our government finally accessed the inside. Can you share with us what's in the book? And is there anything else you can add to that?
That occurred let's say in a congressional facility. There was more to it, considerably more to that discussion about what this situation was. We can't go into that.
You're telling us, you told us, because you were allowed to tell us, that our government has a UFO in its possession and has been able to access the inside of it, right?
Yes. It makes
Why is it delicate?
Described in here look primitive.
Why is it delicate? Why is this topic that the United States government has a UFO in its possession and we've been reverse engineering it? You've admitted it. Why is it delicate?
The details.
For decades, the public conversation around UFOs has centered on a single question. What are they? But there's another question, one that may be more consequential and far less comfortable. Who controls the technology? If we accept the growing body of testimony, historical reporting, and insider accounts indicating that the U.S. military and its partners began recovering crashed anomalous vehicles as early as the 1930s, then the implications are significant. Because recovery is only the first step. What follows that is analysis, exploitation, and ultimately attempts at replication. According to multiple sources across decades, these recovered vehicles and materials did not remain within traditional military structures. Instead, they were moved into deeply compartmentalized programs, often referred to as legacy programs, operating outside the standard oversight. Programs so restricted that even senior government officials and elected leaders have been denied access. In many accounts, the technical work itself was shifted to private industry. Aerospace contractors, defense firms, and research laboratories operating under the highest levels of security. This arrangement matters. Private industry is not bound by the same transparency requirements as government agencies. It can retain discoveries indefinitely, bury failures, and continue work across generations without any public accountability. If reverse engineering efforts began nearly a century ago, then even slow, incremental progress would compound over time. Decades of trial and error, breakthroughs quietly classified, failures quietly absorbed, and successes quietly folded into black projects. Under that framework, the idea that some of the objects we now label as UFOs or UAPs could represent advanced human-made systems is no longer extraordinary. It becomes a plausible outcome of long-term, secret technological development. This does not suggest that every unidentified object in the sky belongs to us, but it does suggest that the public narrative, one that treats all advanced sightings as unexplained or external, may be incomplete. There's another critical dimension to this story: legality. If these legacy programs operated without proper congressional authorization, without lawful oversight, and without transparent funding, then exposure would not simply reveal advanced technology. It would expose decades of constitutional violations, misappropriated funds, and a parallel system of governance operating beyond democratic control. In that context, secrecy becomes less about national security and more about institutional survival. Because disclosure would not only force answers about what we recovered, it would force accountability for how those programs were hidden, who authorized them, and who benefited from them. And that may be the strongest motive for cover-up. Because the most dangerous revelation is not that we are not alone, but that we may already possess extraordinary technology developed in secret, beyond the law, and beyond public consent.
And there's a group of other people there, including some well-known congressmen. Senator Alan Cranston was allegedly there. Congressman George E. Brown, who was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology, was there. But there were two pieces, or two sections to this particular hangar on the inside. On the southern side, which would be over here, they had a number of aircraft, including the first generation Aurora, which I'll go into a little bit more here in a bit. They had the F-117A stealth fighter. They had the losing competitor in the B-2 advanced technology bomber competition, which led to the creation of the flying wing Northrop B-2 bomber, the Spirit. They were brought into an area where there were 3 flying saucers hovering off the floor, no landing gear underneath, basically just floating. And there was the smallest of the 3 vehicles. It had a rolling staircase in front of it. You could climb up, you could look inside, see the components. They had a videotape playing on a TV next to it that showed one actually flying around and doing various things. They had a podium with a 3-star general that got up and described the capabilities of this vehicle, and 2 other larger versions of it that were behind it, much larger. You can tell by the size of the door going inside. The synthetic vision system, which involved a number of cameras on the outside. This is the 60-foot version here. This one here was somewhere between 150 and 120 feet in diameter.
I'm here at Shield AI getting an exclusive first look at the X-Bat. It's an autonomous fighter jet, meaning there's no pilot. It's entirely powered by an AI system called HiveMind.
X-Bat is a next-generation warfighter. It has capabilities to fly long distance, carry munitions, be fully autonomous, and be anywhere that defense needs it.
X-Bat is the first airplane in the world that is AI piloted and vertical takeoff, launch, and land. We, Shield AI, have flown the F-16 autonomously, but those 2 things, AI piloted and vertical takeoff, launch, and land, have never come together in the form of a next generation aircraft.
The X-Bat is a fighter jet that can be equipped with missiles and used for combat. The company says that one of its driving missions is to save the lives of service members with pilot-free aircrafts. Shield AI has long been focused on building drones, but now it's hinging a lot of its future on the AI software that's used to power them, like the HiveMind in the X-Bat.
The software is a cornerstone and foundation for everything we do.
The #1 benefit of being able to take off vertically is that you are no longer constrained by a runway. They are massive, stationary, expensive infrastructure targets for the enemy.